Michael Jordan called Caitlin Clark's performance something he'd only seen once before in his lifetime. The person he was comparing her to will shock you. Before you dismiss her as overhyped or unworthy of the attention, you need to hear exactly what MJ said, why he said it, and what it reveals about the evolution happening right now in basketball that most people are completely blind to. Here's your challenge. Pause your assumptions for the next 20 minutes. Don't decide if she deserves the hype until you've heard the full context behind Jordan's words, the statistical anomalies she's creating, and the economic earthquake she's triggering that's making billion-dollar franchises rethink everything they thought they knew about the game. The quote wasn't a casual compliment at a press conference. During a private conversation that leaked through NBA insider channels in March 2024, Jordan told a small group of executives that Clark's court vision and range reminded him of the way Magic saw the game, but with Steph's audacity from distance. That's not hype. That's Michael Jordan fusing two all-time greats into one assessment of a college player. The statement sent shockwaves because Jordan is famously stingy with praise, especially for players outside his era. What makes this even more significant is the timing. He said this before her senior season finale when scrutiny was at its peak. Pay attention to who earns Jordan's words, not just what those words are. Picture this: April 2024, championship game, Iowa down by 5 with under 3 minutes remaining. Clark brings the ball up court, defender draped on her at half court. Without hesitation, she rises from 28 feet, not 23, not the college three-point line, and drains it. The defender hadn't even processed the shot attempt. That 7-second sequence encapsulates what Jordan recognized. She doesn't just play within the structure of basketball as it exists, she's expanding its boundaries in real time. Critics called it showboating. Jordan saw it as evolution. The difference between those two interpretations defines who understands where the game is heading. When innovation looks like arrogance, you're probably witnessing the future before you're ready for it. Why does every generational talent face the same recycled criticism before validation arrives? When Clark's detractors claim she's a product of weak competition or media favoritism, they ignore what Jordan specifically emphasized to those executives. She makes everyone around her better while still dominating. That's the rarest combination in basketball. Her senior year at Iowa saw 4 teammates achieve career-high scoring averages while she simultaneously broke the all-time NCAA scoring record. Critics can't explain that paradox. Jordan could because he lived it. The Bulls' supporting cast flourished precisely because of his gravity, not despite it. If you're judging her without acknowledging that dual impact, you're missing the entire foundation of Jordan's assessment. Jordan doesn't get impressed by raw point totals. He gets intrigued by efficiency anomalies. Clark's 2023-24 season produced a statistical profile that appears on exactly 0 historical player comparisons. She averaged 31.6 points, while shooting 38% from beyond 25 feet, and recording 8.9 assists per game. That combination has never existed at scale. Most high-volume scorers see their assist numbers crater because the ball doesn't move. Hers escalated. Analytics departments across professional leagues started modeling Clark scenarios to understand how one player could generate that much offense without stagnating team rhythm. Unprecedented efficiency. Jordan recognized it immediately because outlier numbers reveal outlier thinking, and outlier thinking is what separates icons from excellent players. Stop looking at what she does and start examining how she processes information under chaos. Jordan's insight wasn't about Clark's shooting mechanics or athletic profile, it was about her decision-making tempo. In that same leaked conversation, he noted that she sees the second and third action before the defense sees the first. Elite players react to what's happening. Transcendent players anticipate what's about to happen 2 possessions ahead. Clark routinely makes passes to spaces that won't be open for another second, trusting her teammates to read the game at her speed. Jordan built a dynasty on that exact cognitive advantage. When you watch her, don't count buckets. Track how often her passes arrive exactly when the defense commits, not before or after. Why does comparing a women's basketball player to male legends trigger such visceral backlash? The discomfort isn't about gender, it's about the threat to established hierarchies. When Jordan draws parallels between Clark and Magic or Steph, he's not saying she'd win one-on-one against them. He's identifying identical pattern recognition and spatial manipulation that transcends physical differences. Traditionalists panic because if skill translation is real, then the entire different league, different level dismissal collapses. Clark's deep range shooting creates identical floor spacing mathematics whether you're playing men or women. The geometry doesn't change. Jordan understands this because greatness speaks a universal language, and he's fluent enough to recognize the dialect when he hears it, regardless of who's speaking. Jordan once described the 1998 finals as playing with the world waiting for you to fail. He understood that pressure isn't just about the scoreboard, it's about carrying expectations that have nothing to do with basketball. Clark entered her final college season with every game televised, every miss analyzed, every celebration scrutinized for appropriateness. She faced defenses designed exclusively to neutralize her, sometimes with 2 or 3 defenders shadowing her 40 feet from the basket. Jordan recognized that specific burden because he lived it for 15 years. The hate didn't break her. That's the test Jordan values most. When you perform at your peak while everyone's rooting against you, that's when character reveals itself. The scoreboard measures talent. Adversity measures greatness. The shooting form everyone obsesses over is actually the least interesting technical element. Clark's release point sits slightly lower than orthodox coaching recommends, but her hip rotation and follow-through create a ball trajectory that peaks higher than standard arcs, making contests nearly irrelevant. Jordan noticed this immediately because his own fadeaway violated textbook mechanics while being literally unguardable. Effective trumps pretty. But here's the deeper layer. Her handle isn't flashy like Kyrie's, yet she never picks up her dribble in traffic. That awareness, knowing exactly how many dribbles remain before commitment, is what separates professionals from amateurs. You can't teach that instinct. Jordan knows because he tried coaching players who never developed it despite endless repetition. Imagine stepping to the free throw line with 17,000 fans screaming, knowing that missing means thousands of social media posts dissecting your failure within minutes. Clark faced that reality in every hostile arena during her final season. Opposing student sections brought signs mocking her appearance, her teammates, even her family. Television cameras caught every reaction, every emotion. Jordan told those executives that her composure reminded him of playing in Detroit during the bad boys era, when hostility was the strategy. She converted 87% of her free throws that season despite weaponized crowd psychology. Mental fortitude isn't visible on highlight reels, but it's the substrate upon which championships are built. Jordan respects toughness more than talent, and he saw both. If you're starting to see why Jordan's assessment carries weight, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment with your biggest takeaway so far. The second half of this story gets even more revealing, especially when we break down the economic impact nobody's talking about and the 3-year window that will determine whether the skeptics or Jordan were right. Caitlin Clark's Iowa jersey outsold every NBA player except LeBron James during the 2023-24 season. Let that sink in. A college athlete in a women's sport generated more merchandise revenue than Giannis, Durant, and Curry combined during that same window. Television ratings for Iowa games averaged 1.8 million viewers, higher than half the NBA's nationally televised regular season matchups. Jordan didn't just notice the talent, he noticed the market disruption. Her economic gravity proved that audiences hunger for transcendent skill regardless of league or gender. The WNBA's viewership projections for her rookie season forced networks to renegotiate broadcast deals mid-contract. Money follows attention, and attention follows greatness. Jordan built a billion-dollar brand on that exact principle, so when he sees someone else triggering the same phenomenon, he pays attention. What drives people to attack someone they've never met for accomplishments they haven't achieved? Clark's rise exposed something ugly about sports discourse. The comfort some people find in diminishing excellence they don't understand. Social media erupted with accusations of favoritism, claims that her stats were inflated, suggestions that media coverage was artificially manufactured. Then the receipts arrived. Analytics firms published breakdowns showing her efficiency metrics exceeded male counterparts in comparable conferences. Attendance records proved fans were buying tickets specifically for her games. Television executives released internal data confirming viewer drop-off when she sat out. Jordan's seen this pattern repeatedly. Greatness gets questioned until the evidence becomes undeniable. The lesson isn't about defending her, It's about recognizing how predictably excellence gets resisted before it gets celebrated. Jordan rarely discusses 1995, the year he returned from baseball and got swept by the Magic in the playoffs. Critics declared him finished, a shell of his former self, unable to reclaim dominance. Sports Illustrated ran a cover questioning whether he'd lost it. He remembers every article, every doubt, every talking head who wrote his eulogy. Then he won 3 straight championships. When Jordan watches Clark absorb criticism about her defense, her competition level, her worthiness of attention, he sees his own narrative replaying with different characters. That's why his endorsement carries weight. He's not guessing about her trajectory, he's recognizing a pattern he personally lived. Legends identify future legends not through hope, but through pattern recognition. The people who have never been doubted rarely recognize resilience when they see it. The weak competition argument collapses under basic statistical scrutiny. Clark's performances against top 10 ranked defenses actually improved. Her scoring average jumped to 33.2 points in those matchups versus 31.6 overall. That's the opposite of what happens when players face legitimate opposition. Her efficiency against elite defensive schemes exceeded her baseline metrics, not declined. Jordan specifically highlighted this inversion to those executives because it mirrors what separated him from volume scorers. Greatness elevates against better competition. The myth persists because people repeat narratives without checking data. Here's the uncomfortable truth. She performed better against the best defenses than against mediocre ones. Elite competition didn't expose weaknesses, it revealed another gear most players don't possess. Don't confuse validation with accomplishment. They operate on completely different timelines. Jordan's insight reveals something critical about how legends are constructed. Nobody believes it's happening while it's happening. Every transformative athlete faced a period where their impact was dismissed, minimized, or attributed to external factors beyond their control. Clark's currently in that exact window, where achievements get asterisked and highlight reels get countered with, but what about arguments? Jordan's advice to young athletes has always been identical: ignore the validation timeline and focus exclusively on the craft. Legends aren't built through consensus. They're built through obsessive refinement that eventually makes denial impossible. The people waiting for permission to call her great have already missed the point. What separates casual observation from expert analysis when evaluating talent? Jordan watches basketball the way master chess players watch amateur games. He's not tracking the current move, he's projecting 5 moves ahead based on foundational patterns. When he assesses Clark, he's not asking, is she good now? He's calculating, what does she become when surrounded by equal talent, professional coaching, and defenses that can't just swarm her? His comparison to Magic wasn't about present-day equivalence, it was about ceiling projection. Magic didn't become Magic until he had Kareem, a professional system, and years of refinement. Jordan sees the raw architecture in Clark that, given proper infrastructure, could produce something historically significant. You're judging the blueprint while he's envisioning the finished building. Picture the WNBA landscape in 2027. Clark will have completed 3 professional seasons, faced every defensive scheme imaginable, and either validated Jordan's assessment or proven the skeptics right. League executives are already modeling this exact timeline because 3 years represents the historical threshold where transcendent talent separates from merely excellent players. Jordan needed 3 seasons before his first MVP. LeBron needed 3 before his first finals appearance. The pattern holds across eras and leagues. Clark's professional trajectory will unfold under microscopic scrutiny with every setback magnified and every achievement dismissed until the body of work becomes undeniable. Jordan understands this window intimately. He's telling you to reserve judgment until the evidence completes itself. Premature conclusions reveal impatience, not insight. Stop treating current performance as predictive of final potential. Development curves aren't linear. The single biggest mistake casual observers make is evaluating emerging talent as if they're finished products. Jordan's entire assessment of Clark hinges on trajectory, not destination. She's already demonstrating skills that typically take professionals years to develop, which means her growth curve has runway most players never access. Every limitation critics identify: defensive positioning, strength against physical play, decision-making under playoff pressure, represents exactly what professional development systems are designed to address. Jordan didn't enter the NBA as a defensive savant. He became one through obsessive film study and repetition. Judging her today is like reviewing a restaurant based on the ingredients before the chef cooks them. Wait for the full meal. Basketball's fundamental geometry hasn't changed, but the athletes exploiting that geometry have evolved exponentially. Jordan dominated through physical and mental superiority in mid-range spaces. Curry revolutionized floor spacing by making 30-foot shots statistically efficient. Clark represents the next iteration, combining court vision, deep range, and scoring volume in a configuration that creates defensive paradoxes with no existing solutions. Jordan's endorsement isn't nostalgia or politeness. It's pattern recognition from someone who's watched the game evolve across 5 decades. He's identifying the specific moment when a new archetype emerges that forces every team to recalibrate their entire defensive philosophy. That doesn't happen often. When it does, the skeptics always lose. Evolution doesn't ask for permission or wait for consensus. It simply renders old models obsolete. So here's what Michael Jordan actually said, and why it changes everything. He identified in Caitlin Clark the same rare combination of court vision, pressure resilience, and competitive evolution that defines every generational shift in basketball history. Not hype, not media creation, pattern recognition from someone who's earned the authority to make that call. The critics dismissing her are making the same mistake people made about Jordan in 1995, Curry in 2013, and every athlete who forced the game to evolve beyond comfortable boundaries. Jordan's not predicting she'll replicate his career. He's recognizing she possesses the specific cognitive and technical tools that create new categories. Watch what happens over the next 3 years. Track her efficiency against elite defenses, monitor how professional coaching refines her already exceptional foundation, and notice how teams scramble to build defensive schemes for a problem they've never encountered before. The judgment isn't complete. The story isn't finished. And the people who waited for permission to acknowledge greatness will be explaining later why they missed it happening in real time. If this changed how you see the situation, share this with someone who needs the full context. More breakdowns coming that dissect exactly what separates temporary hype from permanent legacy shifts. This content is not professional sports analysis or career advice. Consult qualified experts for specific guidance as needed.